News starts now. And good evening, I'm John Wilson.
And I'm Kelly Ring. Thanks for being with us. We begin tonight with accusations and allegations and a Republican primary that's getting messier by the moment. Tonight, another woman has come forward saying she's also the victim of unwanted sexual advances by presidential candidate Herman Cain. This makes the third woman to come forward in the past week. As you know, all it takes is accusations to derail a campaign. And Cain is doing the best he can to run damage control on the situation, but it's beginning to spiral out of control. This latest woman to come forward says the aggressive behavior happened when she worked for Cain back in the 90s. That's when he was the head of the National Restaurant Association. She says, among other things, he invited her up to his corporate apartment. And two other women have also come forward with similar allegations. Cain has not talked about the latest accusation, but he did say earlier this week that even if more women came forward, they were all making their stories up.
If something else comes up, and it will, they are going to make it up. I have never sexually harassed anybody. It was a false sexual harassment claim.
And tonight, Cain is accusing Rick Perry's campaign of being behind the sexual harassment stories. Specifically, one staffer who at one time worked for Cain's 2004 Senate campaign. Cain's campaign manager says the Texas governor should apologize for providing information about the harassment allegations to the media. But Perry's campaign, they're denying any involvement in the story. By the way, a new poll suggests if Cain's campaign does take a hit from these accusations, many of his supporters may jump ship to the Newt Gingrich campaign.
You know, claims of sexual harassment are nothing new, to be sure, in this country, but they're also nothing to be taken lightly. That is also a fact. And Fox 13's Josh Cassio has been looking into this tonight. All right, Josh, go.
Well, John, no doubt Herman Cain has a big target on his back, and these allegations only seem to make that target grow even larger. Now, today we spoke with an HR expert on the topic of sexual harassment, a very serious issue, and it's one that is more prevalent than you may think. It's an issue threatening to derail Herman Cain in the polls. Multiple sexual harassment allegations made against him while he headed up the National Restaurant Association. Charges he's denied over the past few days.
There are factions that are trying to destroy me personally, as well as this campaign.
Cain's grown increasingly agitated over the negative headlines. He's currently at the front of many GOP polls. Kevin Connell, a local human resources expert, says sexual harassment allegations are never to be taken lightly.
Sexual harassment is unwanted sexual advances. It's normally between a manager and a subordinate.
It can be verbal, physical, or the act of creating a hostile work environment. 50 to 70% of women say they've been sexually harassed at some point over the course of their careers.
People who do sexually harass somebody are not thinking. They're not thinking clearly.
In Herman Cain's situation, so far, none of his accusers have offered any public details. Reportedly, two were given settlements by the National Restaurant Association that included hush-hush confidentiality agreements, though there is a push to lift those, led by one of the accuser's attorneys.
If they break that, they've got to give the money back. It's very clear in those contracts that that's what you have to do. So they need permission from the corporation that paid the money to be able to release that information, and they don't have to do it.
For his part, Cain has offered this explanation for one of the cases.
And brought my hand, didn't touch you, up to my chin and said, you're the same height as my wife, because my wife comes up to my chin. My wife for 43 years. And that was put in there as something that made her uncomfortable.
Now, keep in mind, just because there was a settlement paid to some of these women doesn't necessarily mean sexual harassment occurred. It's not uncommon for a company to pay out just to avoid any bad publicity. But in Cain's case, what some point to as damning evidence is the fact that there's not just one woman, but now three accusing him. John?
All right, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission handled nearly 12,000 sexual harassment claims in 2010. And that's just a small fraction of the claims that employers handled internally. And each agreement is different, of course, but almost all of them require confidentiality agreements.
We're still 1 year away from the battle for the presidency, but it's already in full swing. It looks like it's going to be a tight race between Walmart moms. And you may be